I love
Yeah,
to be a stupid baby who gets to yell every line. I'm sorry. I was
I'll be playing the role of the best parts.
That's when he heard him say just before it happened. He shivered. A strong pain ran through his stomach. A very strange feeling quickly came upon him, and without any warning, it started to swell. Why now? He'd already experienced it a number of times. He already knew what would happen next. No, not again! However, as if overhearing Yoji's inner thoughts, Tetsuo grabbed
Yeah,
hold of
always
him.
that thoughts.
He still desperately fought tooth and nail to escape from Tetsuo.
Let me go. No, just stop.
He had no other thought in his mind while trashing about like a caged animal.
trashing. He is literal trash. The trash bot has come to reclaim him.
He just wanted to get away. However, that strange feeling just kept on growing. Furthermore, Tetsuo didn't loosen his grip on Yoji as in the slightest. And from the way that Tetsuo was restraining him, he didn't have any means of fighting back. Things were getting even worse as Tetsuo's hand resumed where they left off. He first pulled down his fly, then his pants and underwear. Every single bone in Yoji's entire body gave a sharp cry of, "No. No, get your hands off me."
No.
He was going to be raped, here in this godforsaken bathroom. Yoji railed against the inevitability of it all. With each passing moment that his body was forced to endure the assault, another small crack started to form in the fragile walls of his mind. He was at a complete loss. When he came to the realization of just how powerless he really was, he just wanted to die. For him to be raped by a guy, an underclassman at that, he just couldn't wrap his brain around it. Just the thought of it increased his raging need to beat the shit out of him 10 ways from Sunday. But with the way things were going, he really couldn't afford to screw himself up even further.
Okay. Monotone
Why?
zone.
Tetsuo, why the hell are you doing this?
Again, his words took no effect. Since he couldn't run away, what choice did he have? And how the hell could he fight off a guy like Tetsuo? Nevertheless,
Ugh.
in the end, it was beyond what he could ever hope to bear. He could feel the cum dripping down his inner
Whoa,
thigh,
what?
still warm.
Whoa.
Inside, he felt nothing but pure revulsion coming out of every pore of his body. Wait a minute.
Wait,
Did he get
audio? It
raped?
happened?
Did he get, like,
Well,
did he put
It
it in
looks
his...
kind of like he's jerking him off.
Yeah, that's what I thought, but
yeah,
maybe?
I don't know. We just don't know.
It's too
It's-
vague.
I think it's
It's
just
very yaoi.
it's a translation. issue, I
Yeah.
think.
Yoji's desire to fight
It's an
completely
assault.
left him as he let his arms dangle lamely to his side.
Uh,
The glass walls deep inside of his mind came crushing down. Again. Huh. He couldn't look Tetsuo in the eye at all. The flashbacks of what happened in the chemistry room came rushing back to him in an instant. He couldn't bring himself to look up at all. This is the second time he'd gotten himself into a sordid situation like this. One that he would rather soon forget. His legs shuddered with a mixture of shame and despair. Alright, looks like it's just jerking off then. Maybe I can't fucking tell!
I think it's
There's too much he
zone.
can.
Yeah.
Well, what do you know?
Well, hang on. Tetsuo's large fingers ran along the inside of Yoji's thigh, tracing the lines his own cum had made along the way. But whose own cum?
We don't know.
So hard to tell!
Whose cum was it?
His fingers reached across for Yoji's groin, they beginning their unwanted advance at the base of his shaft.
Stop.
Tetsuo, what did he really want? He couldn't understand him at all. It's, why me? Why cannot he even look me in the eye?
Ugh.
He could feel Tetsuo's fingers closing in all around him. Shaking and clenching his teeth, he fought to endure it all. Those fingers softly stroked upward to the head, and it wasn't long before they soon fell away. It was beyond horrible. When it was all over, Yoji wondered to himself if leaving quickly was the better idea, rather than trying to revenge himself against Tetsuo. As his mind raced through these desperate thoughts with a low-hanging head, he suddenly felt his chin caught by another hand. His face was met with a frozen gaze. As soon as he looked into that gaze, the deep black fire that had been growing in his chest soon became an inferno. Yoji shook his fist, then swung it at Tetsuo for a second time. However, before his fist could make impact with the other's cheek, it was quickly caught in Tetsuo's massive fist. While that fist ensnared Yoji's desire to smash Tetsuo's face in,
Face N.
he still managed to shoot an ugly glare in Tetsuo's direction with no reinforcement. Oh god, what? In Tetsuo's direction to reinforce the sentiment. He wanted to say something, but was too angry to spit out the words. Hey, oh.
With Yoji's fist still caught in the vice of his one hand, Tetsuo brought up the other to Yoji's face. His fingertips were red and moist.
Tetsuo? Scienceman?
This is dangerous, you know.
Upon
Yes,
hearing
it
these
is
words,
indeed.
something inside Yoji just snapped.
I believe it's Yoji?
Then why do you keep hanging around me? If you really thought that, then you just leave me alone. So why? I almost did a motion, I'm sorry guys.
His voice wavered. He was so far off the deep end that he couldn't stop the words from bursting out of him.
Why me? Why the fuck did you have to do this to me? Just leave me alone. I've had enough. I can't take it anymore.
Just as Yoji started to shout at the top of his lungs, a huge bang clanged dangerously close to his face. Tetsuo had taken his frustration out on the wall. Even with their expressionless depth, Yoji could still make whatever. He could feel his own shivers of terror traveling all the way down his spine, as if frozen water were dripping down the length of it. Tetsuo finally got up. He let go of
You want
Yoji's
someone else
hand.
to take over narration?
Sure, go ahead, yes.
Tetsuo finally got up. He let go of Yuji's hand. Even so, Yuji was too paralyzed to make any motion to leave. Tetsuo silently turned his back on Yuji, then left the store without another word.
Because he was silent.
Yuji could hear the faint sound of his wallet chain swinging to and fro, as well as the steady click-clack of his shoes hitting the floor until they all gradually faded away. When there was no longer any sign of Tetsuo, Yuji caved in and fell to his knees. A blue. For a while, he just stayed like that, completely bewildered and dumbfounded. Then he dragged himself upward enough to stand on his 2 feet, working to straighten out his clothes. He couldn't think about anything at all. He simply moved his hands and feet, the actions automatic and mechanical. As soon as he got out of the store, his fraught nerves began to loosen up, as though it was only now remembering his previous injury. The side of his cheek began to throb with pain. Though the pain emanated from whatever muscle and skin was there, it didn't seem to affect the bone just underneath it. It was obviously from when Tetsuo had hit him. In any case, it wasn't serious. When he thought about it, he didn't regret hitting him at all. All things considered, it was the only thing he could feel good about. As for everything else, he felt absolutely miserable. His powerlessness against a giant like Tetsuo, which was what made him feel so small and pathetic. Feeling crushed and letting his head droop forward, he noticed his bag that had fallen on the floor. When he first brought in here, he must have forgotten about it. He picked it up and put it over his shoulder. It was really heavy. He staggered out of the boys' bathroom.
Alright, he went home. With night, the school solitary journey back to the station.
Alright, I think I'm gonna...
Alright.
Here.
Thanks for... for participating.
For this great experience, Beam Splash. The experience of weird yaoi
but ovals.
Oh, I feel like I missed out if he bangs Kamiya.
I don't think that happens.
Kamiya. Okay, I'll just spoil it and say Kamiya is very unlikely in this playthrough. There you go.
Okay.
Oh, but it can happen?
I will say that there is a thing that can happen,
Oh.
as I recall.
Well, please don't spoil it.
Yes, I'm not spoiling it.
That's
Okay.
the true ending.
Even for
Alright,
me,
good night,
I
guys.
have no idea what's going on. I have a theory, but I don't know if it's true, and we haven't gotten to the part where that theory is okay for me to say. It was late at night. Oh, it's
Wait, now
Makoto's
we're
POV.
following Makoto.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, are we? Is this? No. Makoto rode his bike down a rather unpopular street, his beloved dog running beside him. On the days he had work, he walked the dog when he came home. His beagle, Mary, followed him eagerly, tongue dangling. Makoto had gotten her as a puppy from an acquaintance, having personally asked for it. So whenever Makoto wasn't in school, he was taking care of Mary. Compared to the afternoon, night was cool and passed by easily. Though the breeze was pleasant, he was sweating a little from pedaling his bike. In the middle of their run, Mary decided to sniff a telephone pole, so Makoto slowed down. Meeting her, he slowed the bike, taking a deep breath. He noticed the damp smell of grass and water mixed together. As he smelled it, he remembered the approaching sun. Mary, look. I'm getting confused.
Yeah.
Giving a light pull to his dear dog's leash, he pushed on the pedals of his bicycle. Today, he was changing up the usual route and going a little farther. When he was about 10 minutes past the neighbouring station, a white apartment house came into his view. Stopping his bike a short distance from the apartment, Makoto looked up at its white wall.
Helmet condenser.
Yuji! Oh, okay.
Okay. Yoji?
He softly whispered the name without thinking. Yuji had been somewhat strange recently. The way he acted made it seem as if there was something bothering him aside from his poor health. But Yuji hadn't tried to talk to anyone about it. Even when Makoto had expressed his worries, Yuji had done nothing but shake his head and say that he was fine, despite going to the hospital I mentioned it before. Makoto found this brutally annoying.
Almost
Makoto
as
saw
annoying
Yuji.
as not being able to get an Omega book.
Makoto saw Yuji as someone only getting weaker and weaker. Even before this, the colour of Yuji's face had been sickly, and he possessed no ambition. Although it was very unlikely to happen, Makoto sometimes became extremely worried over the thought that Yuji might simply vanish one day. He was truly worried about Yuji. He would do whatever he had the capability to do for him. Maybe there was at least a small something he could do for him. He wanted to have a time where he could be reliable. But Yuji wouldn't say a thing. He wouldn't talk to him. Makoto
Yeah,
looked
it's a
at the
doggy.
apartment.
I'll touch
As
the space bar
those-
so that you can see the doggy.
A good animal. Let's hope that this animal never encounters the terrors of this yaoi.
Maybe the dog and the iguana are having their own adventure. Oh, and the fish!
Oh yeah.
They weighed over him as he stood there, the night breeze blowing against him, and he slowly became depressed. What he was doing made him seem like a stalker. Once he realized that this, he became embarrassed and quietly clicked his tongue as he glanced away from the building. Putting Mary's leash around his wrist again, he prepared himself to begin pedaling. Just then, a car coming down the street turned on its signal light, slowing down before stopping near the curb. It faced itself perfectly towards the apartment. He found this suspicious, although he didn't know why, and he kept his eyes on the car. It was the sort of car that could be found anywhere.
Should watch this car closely. It's just like any other car.
The driver's side door opened, and a man stepped out. Feeling as if he had seen him once before, Makoto concentrated his gaze on him. He was. Of course, it was definitely the man who was always chauffeuring Zenya. Do they all live in the same apartment and not realize it? With a
No.
cigarette between his lips, the man looked up at the apartment. He grimaced, perhaps because the smoke had gotten in his eyes. It seemed that no one else was riding in the car. Why was this man at Yuji's apartment? A heavy feeling of suspicion hung over Makoto. Even though Yuji was repeating this year, he'd still been in the same grade as Zenya at one point. So it wasn't all that strange that Zenya knew about Yuji. But there didn't seem to be any connection between the two, and it was strange that the driver had come alone. Was it possible that for some reason Zenya had his eye on Yuji? That wasn't a completely impossible argument. Zenya was an eccentric. No common sense could be applied to him. Thinking of the worst possible case, Makoto wondered if maybe he ought to tell Yuji before something happened. Thoughts were swirling in Makoto's head with a speed that couldn't be compared even to when he was studying. Because of that, he didn't notice at all that Mary was growling in a low tone.
Eh.
His vigorously resounding voice pierced through the quiet night. Startled, Makoto went stiff from his head to his toes, as if he had been drenched in cold water. Kitani plucked the cigarette from his lips, turning his back towards Makoto.
Makoto?
Crap.
Crapola! Hastily grabbing onto the handles of the bike, he tried to plan a change of course. Careful not to tangle Mary's leash, he started off. He pedaled at full force. He was out of breath. Somehow he'd gotten away from that place, using all of his might. He had no idea how far he and Mary had gone. Once he took notice, the surrounding scenery became a place he was familiar with. He'd come back close to his house. Looking at the end of the leash, he could see Mary zipping along, running for her life.
Sorry, that was probably a little rough on you.
Being in too much of a hurry, he'd gone off without thinking of Mary. Worried that he might be working her too hard, he stopped the bike right away. Mary's tongue lolled out, panting, her tail wagging happily for some reason.
Because she's a dog and has no concept of worries for the future.
This is you.
Come on. Why do you have to growl back then?
He grumbled these words without thinking, but it was easy to tell that he had no real ill will towards Mary. Instead, he found himself to blame. Giving in to his self-hatred, Makoto draped his arms over the handlebar and let out a deep sigh. Thinking over what had happened, he chewed his lip. He should have just called Yuji.
Hey,
Makoto
Yuji, there's that one weird guy outside again.
His contact list displaying on the LCD. He wanted to tell Yuji as soon as possible. He was about to call him directly when his hand stopped. He didn't know Yuji's number. What?
Jesus Christ. Is this supposed to be a punchline?
He knew his email, but the space for his number in the contact list was blank. With a sigh, he felt at a loss, as if a hole opened up inside him.
Oh.
Why did he think he knew his number? He had entered the email addresses and numbers of virtually all of his other friends. But he didn't know Yuji's. No, that wasn't the only problem. When he really thought about it, he didn't really know much about at all about it.
Why are you hanging out with him?
It wasn't that he was concerned about knowing more, but it was a shock that when he considered Yuji a good friend regardless. Considering Yuji had almost never told him anything. What did Yuji think of him? The question had never occurred to him. Dazed by this unexpected truth, there was a tug to the leash wrapped around his wrist. Mary was pacing about, anticipating her walk while staring up at Makoto.
Sorry, wait just a little longer.
Looking at Mary, he pulled himself together. For now, he felt he should at least send a mail. Then he fiddled with his phone to quickly send one out. Starting to pedal his bike once again, Makoto was filled with helplessness. If he brought it up to anyone, it would be laughed at for being trivial. Even he himself thought it was trivial. Maybe he thought he was actually too concerned. When he thought of Yuji's pessimistic personality, he felt that seemed about right. But still, he'd be better off no longer thinking about it. Trying to drive away his timidness, Makoto stared at the lit streetlights ahead of him. Using his head wasn't his nature. At any rate, he'd tell Yuji about it today when he went to school tomorrow.
Yes, today, tomorrow. The 2 times you can declare to be the same.
He couldn't think about anything else. Having decided, Makoto went straight down the road to his place.
Okay, I'm gonna go make myself some food. I'm gonna leave it on auto. Hopefully you guys can keep up. If you can't, don't worry
Okay.
about it.
Yeah, chances are that it's just going to be more
Yeah.
junk. So,
Yeah, we've
right
just
to
had a major
school,
scene.
he went straight to his seat. Seemed
gonna
like
take this
Yuji'd only
moment to
just
chew on
arrived.
something.
So he just hooked his bag to his desk and sat down. Yuji! His emotions carrying away, Makoto unintentionally called out in a loud voice. He must have wondered why. Yuji turned to face him with a surprised expression. Yes, that's his surprised expression right there. Makoto rushed over to Yuji's seat, placing both hands on the desk and leaning forward. So, maintaining a shocked expression, Yuji didn't say anything. Trying to keep up his vigor and continue talking, Makoto found it puzzling. Yuji was still in a bit of a strange state. Yuji, what happened? Taken aback, Yuji met Makoto's gaze. What is it? Oh, you just seemed like you were spacing out. Sorry, I'm okay, but what is it? Well, yes. Getting hold of his rash feelings, Makoto opened his mouth. Well, yesterday, in the evening, I had an errand, and I happened to be going by your place. Once he started talking, he noticed he hadn't thought of a reason as to why he was all the way over at Yuji's place. He immediately tried to cover it up, but maybe that was a bit of a half-hearted excuse. But Yuji didn't mention it. Relieved, Makoto continued. Saw something kind of weird. Weird? Yeah, so the guy who drives around Okanaga was in front of your place. He drove up in a car. You hear it? He drove in a car like he does. Okanaga? The nobody of a driver who took him to the school gates. Maybe he's finally understood because Yuji frowned a little at that. Why would he be in front of my... That's what I want to hear. But, in short, maybe that guy is Okanaga's henchman. So... I thought maybe he's going to keep an eye out on you for Okanaga. Blah, blah, blah. Blah, blah, blah. Complex expressions. Uneasiness. Also, yes, but we just witnessed a wonderful scene in the bathroom, and nothing's going to be done about it because this is yaoi time. Yaoi time is a special time. That guy's a real oddball.
Get some food.
Yeah, real oddball. I don't know what he's thinking. I don't know what he's thinking at all. Yeah, Yuji gave a small nod. That was it. That was the thought that came to Makoto's mind. Didn't he have anything else to say? Or did he just think it wasn't a big deal? It wasn't satisfying. What wasn't satisfying to him? Yuji was a man of few words. This wasn't the first time he hadn't reacted underwhelmingly. He knew that, but still, it made him very irritated. Makoto? Yuji looked puzzled. Then the bell signaling the start of class rang. See ya. Going over to his bitter feelings, Makoto left at Yoji's desk. Surely Yoji must think he was being weird. Even he himself felt he was acting weird. Right now he was acting strange. He'd have to cool his head a little. He told him about yesterday's event. What to do from here was up to Yoji. Even if he was worried, it was no use. Letting out a deep breath, Makoto took his old seat. After school, when all the classes were done, a great noise filled the classroom as usual. While preparing to go home, Yuji glanced toward Makoto's desk. As soon as he'd finished the final farewell, Makoto had gone home with some of his friends. He wasn't worried about it that much, but he was still a little stuck on the morning's occurrence. Makoto, who had come to school and then bounded over to his seat, seemed awfully agitated, and he left with an uneasy expression. It was the first time he'd made a face like that. The first time ever he had made that face. Maybe he'd said something disagreeable to Makoto by accident. When Yoji was pondering, the class got noisy all at once. Are you here? Startled by the undeservedly loud voice, Zenya had door before him wide open, craning his neck. You! The classroom buzzed, wondering who it was he was calling. He didn't even want to see Zenya's face. Continuing to pretend he didn't know what was going on, Yuji lowered his head and kept silent. In the midst of the whispers and uncertain chatter, a female student tried to slip around Zenya and enter the class from the corridor. But Zenya didn't move from that spot, suddenly hitting the door with his palm like he remembered something. Gah! The female student, frightened, retreated. Zenya gave a broad smile at that. You, come here already. I've got free time, I'm bored.
I guess this is more no quotation mark time.
Yep. Grumbling, Zenya hit the door repeatedly with his demand. He demands the door come with him. The students, wondering who he was calling, started to take notice of Yoji. It looked like he would enter the class if he kept ignoring him. Unable to keep it up, Yoji finally stood from his seat. But why? There he is! Watching Yoji approach, Zenya beamed happily. You're being a bother. The first thing out of his mouth were sharp words of resentment. Curious gazes were coming together, not just from the class, but from the students in the corridor as well. For now, he wanted to leave this place peacefully. But Zenya didn't seem to take Yoji's words into consideration at all, eyes glinting more and more.
A bother.
What do you mean?
I just want to talk a little.
With those words, he remembered what Makoto had said this morning. The story that last night, the driver who escorted Zenya came to his apartment. Was he planning something after all? But not here.
But not here. I want to go somewhere different.
Doesn't have to be now.
Yep, it does. Now we'll do just fine.
Zenya was still hitting the door as he spoke.
Reason or instinct?
Let's see what the chat has to say.
Okay, chat. Should we... now, granted, I don't know how much this actually changes anything. Like, he'll probably go with him either way, to be honest. But,
Yeah, I was looking at a walkthrough, and apparently it's only chains of choices that really change things. Like, if you go all blue, all red, or you, like, alternate 3 red, 3 blue, like, it's weird stuff like that.
Yeah. Anybody? It'll probably take a while.
Yeah. Yeah, Instinct didn't end too well last time, but this guy's also evil, so chances are that it'll still end the same way.
Yeah.
Also, I'm gonna spoil it slightly and say that one bathroom scene is basically unavoidable. It's guaranteed to happen.
Oh yeah, definitely. Reason? Okay.
It was hard being exposed to these curious looks. Nevertheless, he couldn't accept Zenya's request so easily. What was he to do? While he silently considered it, Zenya stomped both feet on the ground as if he's lost his patience.
Now or never. It must be now. Do you really gotta think about it? Hurry, you.
With Zenya's loud voice, his clearly troublesome mood was flowing into the class and the hall. If he didn't agree now, Zenya would probably shout more. He might even get violent. Understood. Stop yelling. Shut up, he opened his reluctant mouth.
So you decided.
So you decided.
Okay.
So you decided. Come with me.
With a gait as if they were just going on an excursion, Zenya started walking towards the main entrance. Feeling half desperate, Yuji exited the classroom. From the entrance, he could see the sky wrapped in black clouds, and drop by drop it began to rain. When it rained, the garbage was temporarily collected inside the school, and these times were the only times the janitor would throw it all out the next day. This means Yuji's going in the garbage today. Students outside dashed inside the school from the entrance with noisy footsteps. Conversely, Zenya made his way outside without batting an eye at the rain. Yoji followed behind him. Coming down the path to the side door where the garbage was normally collected, Zenya stopped. It wasn't a particularly popular place, but because of the rain, there was not a soul. Zenya turned to face Yoji, looking down with a big grin. The space between them had widened a little. Without letting his guard down, Yoji waited silently for Zenya to speak.
What I wanted to say was, well,
Gotta warn you. Warn me. Exactly.
It didn't feel like...
Zenya was warning him. Didn't feel like it at all. While Yuji mulled over the suspicion, Zenya suddenly started to laugh. He made his throat warble as if he couldn't help enjoying himself.
Hey, it's no good, crapping yourself. If you just do that kind of thing, you'll provoke people. Right, naughty kid.
Maybe he'd really gone insane. He was bewildered, not having the slightest clue what the man in front of him was saying. I like the random length of pauses. It ain't too good for you.
It ain't too good.
Oh.
The lack of, it ain't too good for you if you crap yourself. Especially, say, blood or flesh, hey?
Whoa! Zenya was looking at him with upturned eyes. How did you... Why did Zenya know about it? When had he seen him? You again, Simon.
Sorry, I've become Makoto in a meeting. But, it wasn't the real thing yet, right? No, not yet. Not yet. Not quite yet. Not the real thing. The thing that is
discharged was an imitation. An imitation of a true but oval. What did that mean? What do you mean? Not the real thing.
Hey, is Hironuma Tetsuo your pet or something?
The incoherent change in conversation was confusing. Suddenly, he'd brought up Tetsuo, which reminded him Zenya had been paying attention to Tetsuo as well lately.
But that Tetsuo, he's no good. Because Yuji, you're like me. That's right.
Craning his neck slightly as he spoke in a whispered tone, Zenya slowly reached out both arms. Little by little, the passing rain was getting stronger. The sky had been completely devoured by the black clouds.
Yuji and me. You're like me. Got it.
With his left eye opened wide, Zenya smiled, teeth showing.
You're not human anymore.
For the moment, he was at a loss for words. What kind of stupid thing was he saying? Dumbfounded, he felt like something had been thrust into his heart. He wasn't human. Those poorly chosen stupid words were too outlandish. But for some reason, he couldn't ignore them. That guy Tetsuo. Oh wait, you?
That guy, Tetsuo, he's just a regular human, right? Isn't that boring? So...
Zenya slowly started to walk ahead. His expression was hidden by the brim of his hat, so Yoji saw nothing but lips twisted into a smile. The drops of rain falling from pitch-black clouds wet his dry hair and clothes. Zenya took another step ahead before turning his body at an unnatural angle. Good night, Asterisk, and good luck. You again, Scienceman.
We best get along.
Suddenly he took a heavy blow to the pit of his stomach. His breath was cut off.
Oh, don't abuse him again.
A white-hot pain burned in the place where Zenya's fist landed, and Yoji's knees buckled. We're not going to tell you, Asterisk. That would be spoilers. Yoji's knees buckled because he got punched by a beautiful dude, apparently. Regurgitated stomach acid surged in his throat. Oh. Pain. Just as he curled into a ball, coughing, he took a kick to his side. A dull pain shook his insides, field of vision going black. He realized he was laid out on the ground. The strong smell of rain hit the tip of his nose. Bang. Bang. Bang.
What?
I think that might be Zenya.
Yeah. Hey.
Raising his voice even louder, Zenya kicked not just his stomach, but his shoulders and back. Anywhere his foot landed was a kick. Unsure of what he was even hurting anymore, Yoji grit his teeth, enduring it.
I ain't gonna get your face. Here goes.
His voice was lively, clearly filled with joy. Just as he said, aimed mostly for his stomach.
What a nice man.
Kicked with that stiff shoe sole, he let out a stifled moan.
Everybody's just
Dude,
totally
Tetsuo.
insane.
Tetsuo just went for the face. But Zenya is courteous.
Well, with both of them at him, he'll just be totally bruised all over. Poor kid.
Given the rain, I think
Starting
Zenya's
to
supposed to be
lose sensation of his body in
and,
that endless pain.
Tetsuo's the instinct.
I
Because
believe.
you went with
Wait, what?
even though it's sort of supposed to be the other way around. Because you reacted with instinct to it, Tetsuo, and then that ended up with the situation in the toilet. But
Apparently, that's unavoidable.
Oh.
It's practically unavoidable.
How strange.
I'll just say that Tetsuo is critical to the main plot, so you constantly run into him.
Yep.
His vision and thoughts were fading, by the way. I like how we've just been talking casually over Yaoi getting beaten up, and now he's probably dead. Oh well.
This is Scienceman.
First, I want to show the true Yuji. So I'm gonna get your pet ready. I think I put hot sauce on this bun instead of sweet sauce.
Uh-oh.
Suffering from a terrible headache, he blinked a few times before slowly opening his eyes fully. Where was this place? As he tried to move, Yuji realized he was laid out on the floor. When he squirmed, pain ran through every part of his body, face twisting. What had happened to him? Just as he wondered, the memory came back to him bit by bit. That's right. He'd been summoned by Zenya at school and then been attacked in the middle of talking with him. Before he knew it, he'd lost consciousness, and then, little by little, his ability to reason returned, and his gaze circled his surroundings again. It seemed like he was in a room somewhere. It wasn't the school. There were no lights on, but there was a faint illumination in the room. The source was a television on the desk before him. The screen was static. It was a deserted room with nothing in it. Maybe it would be better to call it a storage room. As he came to his senses more and more, he was bothered by a strange smell clinging to his nose. It was an extremely strong smell, like incense burned in a private general store. Yoji sensed this was the cause of his headache. Whatever it was, he had to get out of here right away. Trying to raise his body, he realized he couldn't put any strength in his arms. His muscles creaked with the kind of strong fatigue one might have after some intense exercise. On top of that, No matter how he moved his body, his stomach hurt, because Zenya had kicked it relentlessly. Oof. He clutched his teeth to get through the pain, deciding to change up his methods. He began to crawl when he hit his foot on something. Wait. Looking behind to see exactly what was there, he saw someone laying down. Oh no, the beautiful boy's been beaten up too. It was Tetsuo. His eyes were closed. He must have blacked out. But why was Tetsuo here? Confused and unable to think, Yoji tossed about, forgetting his pain. He kept his eyes on Tetsuo, confirming his chest was moving up and down regularly. He hadn't died. And now that he looked, he noticed there were wounds on Tetsuo's face, as though he'd been hit. Could it be that Zenya? That helpless face lit by the CRT screen taunted him greatly. There were cuts near his thin lips, smeared with blood. How did it come to this? Oh man, is that what happened? He punched Tetsuo in the face a lot, but then avoided punching me. Okay.
Maybe.
In the face. You know, a certain smell. There's that one certain smell. Could someone take over? I need to drink something.
Oh,
It was different from the strong scent filling the room. It was a familiar smell he'd experienced countless times. You're going to say something?
No, I'll volunteer, but...
No. Suddenly he felt a hot flash. His pulse quickened, assaulted by a suffocating feeling. This feeling.
Uh-oh.
The feeling of butt oval.
It was something he'd experienced before. It was completely different from his usual symptoms. A feverish arousal. His breathing wild, he closed his eyes and exhaled to escape from the pain. His body was looking for something. But what? Opening his eyes little by little, Tetsuo's face was in view. The blood smeared by his lips now seemed like an irresistibly sexual thing for Yuji. The non-stop static noise reached his ears and invaded his thoughts.
It's Silent Hill now.
He realized he was hovering over Tetsuo. He moved his head in to close the distance between them, holding one hand to Tetsuo's cheek. He could feel the sensation of irregular, swollen skin beneath his hand, where Tetsuo had been hit.
Oh no!
Nondeska! Even just that sent a shiver down his spine.
Tetsuo murmurs in Japanese, and it's the hottest thing Yuji has ever heard.
Moving his hand to stroke that cheek, he felt something wet and slippery. He thought it was blood from the wound, but he was mistaken.
It was
The
just
spot
blood
where the hand
everywhere.
and cheek connected was bloody, and it was smeared red like paint down Tetsuo's cheek. It was a strange phenomenon.
Wait, so it's not blood, but it is blood?
No, it's blood. Whenever they touch each other, blood
Oh,
shoots
right.
out.
But in the eyes of Yuji, delirious in his fever, even that was a lure. He touched his bloody fingertips to the wound on Tetsup's cheek. Tetsup, ketchup. Mixing the blood on the wound with that on his finger, he slid it towards Tetsuo's mouth. Slowly moving his finger over his lips to paint them with blood, he crept the tip inside of Tetsuo's mouth. It bumped into the hard sensation of teeth. Pushing his finger into the slight gap between the rows of teeth, he touched the warm, soft membrane. Touching Tetsuo's tongue to rub the blood against it, he pulled his finger away.
Man, what a weirdo.
Well, he's had a weird time, too.
Yeah.
Replacing the finger, he pressed his own lips to Tetsuo. He's completely delirious at this point. It was sweet. That was the first thing he sensed. Maybe it was the blood he'd smeared, or maybe something on top of that was sweet. His confusion and hesitance had taken off somewhat, and now he craved more of Tetsuo's lips.
Buh.
Suddenly he was surprised by a strong grip on his wrist.
No shit.
Opening his eyes, another sharp pair was staring at him. So surprised he thought his heart might stop, Yuji pulled away immediately. but strong arms had reached around Yuji, holding his body in place.
Bah!
Good job, Zenya. You just made the exact same thing happen again. Though he tried to get away, he was hit by an intense sensation where his Tetsuo was touching him, as if his blood was boiling. It was as if his body was reacting to Tetsuo.
Oh boy.
It was a chill and a feverish heat slid down the nape of his neck at the same time.
I'm sorry, but I really need to quote Pokemon Vietnamese Crystal here. My dance machine starts to react.
Shaking, sprawled on the floor, his chin was grabbed from behind. With a bit of force, his head was turned to face Tetsuo over his shoulder.
That's insane.
He could see those unfold, cold eyes, expressionless and illuminated by the light of the CRT screen. For some reason, he felt a mysterious sense of relief. Even in a situation like this, nothing had changed about Tetsuo.
Still a rapist.
As Yuji met his gaze, fascinated, Tetsuo's hand reached down for his hips. Surprised, he tried to jerk them away, but his body ached, wanting to release that fever. Tetsuo's hand had plunged mercilessly into his boxers, already touching Yuji's swollen desire.
My desire is swollen too.
Quit it!
Quit it!
Stop it! Quit it! Stop it! Quit it! Grabbing hard onto Tetsuo's arm, he couldn't stop him. Slowly, the hand holding Yuji began to move. Stimulation like an electric current ran through him, and he made a noise without thinking. He felt shy at his own reaction. He couldn't fight it. Instead, the fever was running more and more throughout his body. He was at odds. He wanted to refuse, but he wanted to be touched. His dividing, twisting heart seemed to cry out.
G-
Trying not to make a sound, he was desperate to resist. He tried to call back his vanished logic, repeating to himself inside his head over and over that it was Tetsuo who was touching him. He couldn't let himself be overcome. He didn't want to expose his pitiful self any further. However, there was confusion developing within Yuji.
Really? Developing.
Only now is he confused.
I'm trying to understand like what Yuji's characterization is at this point.
Well,
Is he
for
just?
some reason,
I guess it's just supposed to be a blank
I don't
slate
want to be
for us
touched by
to
Tetsuo.
project our desires onto.
I guess so.
So I guess the reader's expected to want to see him constantly get in trouble and get punched up all over his body and.
I don't know.
I'm not
What a poor
sure.
baby.
I mean, like I vaguely understand that some people are really into the idea of non-con thing.
Right.
And from a fantasy point of view, okay, whatever. But like every single thing that's happened to him has been terrible. I don't know why we're supposed to like this.
Yeah, it's pretty bad. Why would
I think there's
Tetsu-
like an elder god influence going on.
I also think that might be the case. Usually, realizing you were kissed by another man meant you'd push him away, even if Yoji might still have been saving him. Could it be? Was Tetsuo in the same state as he was? Driven by a greed he couldn't do anything about? No, he couldn't be. Tetsuo's eyes, as he'd seen them just before, hadn't changed in the least. He couldn't find anything feverish about him. But if that were so, he understood even less. Gradually, the waves of pleasure intensified, taking over his thoughts. Ugh. He didn't want to be touched anymore. Just as he thought that, Tetsuo whispered to his ear as if he'd read his mind.
Stay still.
Unable to help himself, he squeezed his eyes shut. His wild breathing, the dim light shining on his skin, the cruel sound of static, the sweat running down his chin, and the strong smell blocking his throat. His vision was spinning even though he closed his eyes. The motion of Tetsuo's hand was getting stronger. A terrible headache was tormenting him, perhaps because he was so desperately resisting. His stomach twitched along with his labored breathing. Constantly feeling pleasure bordering on pain, his body had at last reached its limit. His awareness started to grow dim little by little, completely exhausted. Near and far, the sensation of his body was slipping. While everything was becoming vague, for some reason he could feel only Tetsuo's body heat so very clearly. It was a pleasant warmth felt through slightly rough skin. That sensation stayed with Yoji like a light until he lost consciousness. Funny. That's
At least he's
Zenya.
getting plenty of sleep.
Yeah.
Funny.
Boop.
Unless somebody else wants Zenya.
Deep in the night, Zenya stood in the middle of a darkened room, staring at the floor. Here, it was a prefabricated shed on the very side of the Okanaga house. Used as a storage room, there was only a desk and a chair inside. Alone, a television was placed on top of the desk, but the only thing on the screen was static. Zenya's features were reflected in the picture as he drew closer, looking deathly pale.
Why is that?
He breathed once, but the faint fragrance still hung in the air. With just that, Zenya recollected the sense of blood stirring. Despite this, stooping over from where he stood, Zenya touched the floor with only a finger. Yoichi was here. Next to him was Tetsuo. And it didn't add up. Everything was completely unexpected. If everything had went as planned, Tetsuo would have gone insane. Even if he avoided falling, surely something would have happened to his body. When Yoji was in this room with Tetsuo, Zenya had watched the two. A small camera was connecting the television in this room to the one he watched in another. It was from a simple mischievous urge that he kept the television on. As the static sound continued, he tried feeling sick from it. With such ease, Zenya had created this show, all to let the ever-impertinent Tetsuo know his place, to expose Yuji's true nature, but it was a failure. Far from losing control, Tetsuo had barely shown a hint of anger. This smell. Zenya's jaw tightened as he tilted his head back, snorting. It had an aphrodisiac effect to specific people, forcing them to become aroused. Specific objects, the same thing as himself. Yoji was certainly aroused. To be precise, he wasn't able to fight that thing's instinct that caused his arousal. Fight all he wanted, he wouldn't be able to stop it. Okay. So, sounds like a parasite of some sort, maybe? That's making
I
him...
thought
that's reacting
that
to
Tetsuo was
the...
covered in some sort of incense that was affecting the parasites that are in Yuji and Zenya.
Maybe. He mentioned to Yuji that in such a state, no man could stay calm. Fueled by it, he lost sight as though possessed. However, this had not happened to Tetsuo. If that was the case, was Tetsuo even human? Or was he the same as Zenya? He had a bad feeling. If Tetsuo were the same, he would have reacted to the scent. What if he wasn't this or that?
Tisk.
Zenya stood up before he kicked the desk harshly. The desk fell over, the televisions toppling onto the floor, causing a loud crash. The glass of the screen shattered, the room suddenly becoming dark. He hated anything he couldn't understand. It was better if things were kept simple. If things needed further explanation, it was pointless to begin with. He hated it, not to mention someone like Tetsuo, whose face always held a level of complexity, forcing a smile, holding back a cry, displaying anger. Crucial things like this were missing. If all men had the faces of children, it would be easier to know more from earnest expressions.
Shiranuma Tetsuo.
He recalled that smug look. He had asked Katani to investigate, but nothing was found out of the ordinary. Although he was human, he didn't display any reaction. Even Yoji was getting closer to him. Everything about it disgusted him.
Tuh.
Giving the desk another kick, Zenya turned his body towards the door. In response to his newfound anger, his right eye yanked under the eye patch. Someday he'll tear off this disguise. That way he could feel the pain better if he were to die. Zenya's left eye narrowed sharply as he slowly licked his upper lip. Man, what's going on? Who knows? Weird stuff. This had to be the umpteenth time he'd woken up like his. That's what he thought in the back of his mind when he opened his eyes. The pitch-black sky was in his faded field of vision. The quiet night air permeated his skin. He was clearly in a different place when he woke up than when he had collapsed.
I hope the rest of this is like this. He just keeps waking up in different places.
He must have blacked out again. He knew that much, having pretty much already accepted it. He decided to get up for now. Just moving his body even a little hurt if he was straining his whole body, and he had a nasty headache. He was an utter wreck. He knew how he ended up like this, but intentionally trying not to think about it, he put both hands on the ground and carefully stood up. He'd been passed out in the garbage collection area. Oh no! Trash! Before his eyes was his own apartment complex. Suddenly he wanted to burst into laughter. This was stupid, ridiculous, worthless fuckery. Deplorable.
Yes, worthless fuckery, said the robot as he attacked the trash boy.
Zenya.
Zenya.
The dark room, the white light, the strong smell, his head hurt. His body ached, he was getting a fever. Tetsuo was there. Tetsuo touched him, held him from behind, and then Tetsuo's body heat. Overwhelmed by indescribably feelings, he hurriedly pushed the back of his hand into his mouth. If he hadn't, he would have screamed. Why? How? Problems with no solution kept multiplying. Being in this state was miserable. He felt like he was truly becoming just a piece in a game. Without knowing a single thing, he was being manipulated by someone. Pieces just slowly making their way around. Without knowing a thing, then they get tossed in the end. With steps as heavy as lead, Yuichi walked his way towards the mansion.
Wait, mansion?
No.
No. This is not a mansion.
No. As soon as he was home, he went to his room, throwing himself on the bed. He didn't want to do a thing. He didn't want to think about anything. Without turning the lights on, he buried his face in the covers. Relieved by the soft, familiar feeling, he closed his eyes. Now even the sound of springs absorbing his weight was soothing and gentle. He laid that way for a short while, and time passed. His calm thoughts slowly returned.
Time continued to pass at a linear rate.
Think about what happened yesterday. Some of us clicked, yep, we remember. Why was Tetsuo there too? Couldn't imagine the reasoning. Suddenly became... Surely he'd been going crazy himself. He couldn't control his body's rampage. But Tetsuo seemed to keep his cool as always. So then he should have been able to push Shoji aside when he was touching him for no good reason. But Tetsuo did no such thing. Why? No way. Suddenly crazy thought, what if? Could it be that Tetsuo and Zenya were working together? His thoughts had gone so far, but in the end he figured that wasn't the case. Tetsuo hadn't really hurt him, but that didn't mean it wasn't it wasn't a point that didn't bother him. Oh. He'd only come into contact with Zenya and Tetsuo recently, and pretty much at the same time. Till then he hadn't ever even exchanged words with them, and Zenya repeatedly said things indicating he was aware of Tetsuo. On the surface, okay, alright. Even first and foremost, he had no idea why they'd work together. Aquarium lights, not human. Tetsuo's words returned to his ears. Those words he figured were stupid now held a weighty importance. That didn't mean he's just gonna swallow them as true. Another thing, Tetsuo accepted rolling over, stairs dark ceiling, he got to...
Okay, I have to ask at this point, is this much filler text and flowery descriptions typical for these types of games?
I don't think so. I'm thinking back to Dramatical Murder, and I feel like a lot more was happening.
Because so far, what we've been witnessing is just a person going about his regular day, and then we have like 5 minutes where something totally fucking ridiculous happens, and then it goes back to being a boring regular description of a regular day.
Yeah, pretty much.
Maybe that's why he's so, like, disbelieving of what's actually happening. He just pushes everything down and...
I think that's giving the writers too much credit on this one. These are the people who came up with the weird butt ovals, remember? We're talking about people who probably are not focused on the many nuances of this storytelling.
Alright. Next day, prepare for school. Covered in bruises.
So he's not going to talk to the police about this because that's not how it works in the Yaoi games.
No, he's going to talk to Tetsuo.
Yes. I should talk to my rapist. I'm sure that he can.
Tetsuo... He was reading a novel with his
when we woke
glasses
up
on.
in a dark room? That was really crazy, right?
He couldn't falter in the least. Noticing Yoji, Tetsuo took off his glasses, glancing upwards. Oh, come on, show us him in his glasses. He's probably really handsome.
He's very handy.
When their eyes met, tension ran through him.
So-
At the same time, he felt a slight sense of discomfort. Something was different. But there was no time to contemplate what it was. At lunchtime, come to the roof. Oh, sorry, that's, Yoji.
At lunchtime, come to the roof of the old school building.
He turned back immediately after quietly speaking so that only Tetsuo could hear. From the start, he hadn't felt like hearing an answer. A few students had peeked over at the situation, but when they met Yoji's eyes, he averted his gaze, feigning ignorance. He sat in his own seat, feeling as if he'd done something outrageous. Later would be lunch break. Prepare himself for the morning prayers. After the morning classes, the bells rang for lunch immediately. Through the room, courtyard. He made his way to the stairs, key to the roof. He's nervous about going to the roof and what he's going to talk to Tetsuo about. There didn't seem to be a trace of anyone on the spacious concrete area. Would Tetsuo come? Walking to the fence, he leaned with his back against it. His gaze fell to his feet, and then he touched the tip of his shoe to the ground for no reason. The time seemed to be going by awfully slow. Maybe he wouldn't come. She'd keep waiting like this. Started wondering if he... Oh, and then there he is. It's fine. The door opened and he saw Tetsuo. He was coming towards Yoji.
He's coming closer.
They were gone. The wounds on Tetsuo's face. It was because of that he felt something was off in the classroom. Tetsuo had definitely had wounds when he touched him after being taken by Zenya. Had he been mistaken because of the darkness? No, they were bloody and swollen. So then why? Tetsuo suddenly come next to Yoji, leaning on the fence in the same way. Dumbfounded, he couldn't find any scars on that face as he stared. What did this mean? His suspicions towards Tetsuo grew. So Tetsuo really was connected to Zenya. Of course, then those wounds really had just been a projection? His suspicions started to mix with anger little by little, and Yoji gave him a hard look. Nobody said anything, though. Then Yoji says the thing.
Explain to me what the hell that was. Also, why does Tetsuo's face look totally different now?
Inconsistency in drawing, probably, something like that. What? His indifferent reply fueled Yoji's anger. The reason he had such a calm face must be because he knew everything. Yoji.
What happened yesterday? Could you be one of Okinaga's accomplices?
Tetsuo didn't respond. Bothered by this, Yoji was getting madder.
Say something. No, please, Tetsuo, say something. Okay.
It's the same for me.
From there, Tetsuo took a pause.
I don't really know. I got hit all of a sudden, and then it all ended up how it did.
That is a lie.
He denied it with a strong tone.
Are you fucking with me? Don't joke around. ...
He was silent again. Although he ought to refute if Yoji was mistaken, he did not. What was going on?
If you're not lying, say so. Regardless, just say the truth.
More than what was true or not, he couldn't stomach Tetsuo's attitude. He really had no idea what was on his mind. Could he have a connection with Zenya? Did he know something about Yoji? He had a heap of things he wanted to ask, but what he cared about most was why he had done that thing in that room. Shush. Perhaps because the person who had done it was right before him, the memory came back to him vividly. At the same time, something throbbed strangely inside of him. His stomach was pulsating as if he'd grown a second heart inside of it. Could this be? It was a feeling he'd tasted so many times already. It was the same in that room. A sudden exhalation and smothering feeling, his body showing signs that it was going to go on a rampage. In this state, his body moved before he could think, and he was dashing off towards the door. But an arm grabbed him from behind. Ah! This is Tetsuo.
Wait,
Hyoji.
don't touch me.
Reason or instinct?
Oh.
Well, do we want to be with Tetsuo still after the experience?
I kind of do.
I guess we'll just go red then.
Alright.
Go instinct then.
He
Better
flailed
red
his
than
arms
bad.
around wildly to get away. Just then, he smelled an out-of-place sweet smell. He'd already smelled that smell so many times. It was a
That
scent that
smell
woke
that
up a feeling
smells.
of ecstasy. Yoji.
Let me go.
Forcing Tetsuo's grip loose, he immediately ran off. He flung the door open and descended the stairs, leaving the old school building. Leaving the courtyard, he suddenly gritted his teeth and went to the bathroom again. Placed both hands on the wall before him. He knew inside of him what was going to happen now. He wanted to stop it, but he couldn't. The pain of his abdomen swelled, changing into a strange object. Cautiously taking off his belt with sweaty hands, he lowered his pants and underwear, and with a hot contraction, a warm liquid flooded out of him. He was awfully humiliated as it dripped down, breathing ragged. Yoichi just waited for the nightmare to pass. He endured the swelling of his abdomen as it sped up, but in the end, he lost the strength. Ugh. He's pooping more ovals.
Yep.
He closed his eyes tightly as he would have absolutely not looked down. He knew what had happened even without looking. He could vividly imagine it behind his lids as if he actually were seeing it. The blood around the toilet seat and the floating red mass in the middle. The mass had stripes like blood vessels on the surface, weakly trembling and twitching. It seemed like a small heart. Like a small heart!
More like a small fart. Haha.
Without stopping
You
his
did it.
resistance, he pushed his face into his hands that had been on the door. He couldn't look down at his feet. He couldn't believe it. Didn't want to believe it. His heart was simply filled with the despair of something that could never be undone taking place. He wasn't human. A bitter sigh came out in place of a scream. Maybe it really was so. Even he had no idea what was going on in this body of his. Yoji could only desperately hold back his sobs, caught in the darkness with no exit. Wow, sucks, bro. Man.
And that, kids, is why you should always use protection. There we go. Is that what we're learning here?
I mean, this happened before he had sex, so...
Well, we don't know.
Well, I guess it happened it's true. After putting his clothes back on, he left the disastrous-looking toilet. Clean up after yourself, please.
Disastrous-looking toilet is my nickname.
Someone may see it, but he didn't feel like cleaning it up. Leaving the toilet, he looks in the mirror and sees his pale face and lips. He looked like a dead person. He felt sick. Yeah, it sort of does, Flying Man. A little bit. To the
The dead
class.
oval pooper. Is that what we're learning about? Oh my god.
After school, Yuji quickly preparing to go home. Makoto came over looking worried. It's Makoto.
You know, your complexion looks really bad. Are you okay?
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, I just feel a little sick. Sorry, I'm never sure how long to pause when I have that many ellipses.
I see. Then you should go home soon.
Makoto looked like he wanted to say something and lifted his head slightly. He looked like he was hesitating.
Hey, can I ask you something?
What?
Did you have some business with Shiranuma today? It seemed like you talked to him this morning.
Reasoner, instinct.
I guess we'll do instinct again. We'll just he's been driven insane, so just nothing but instinct.
Well, be reasonable to Makoto. He hasn't done anything wrong to you. Makoto just wants to help.
Don't say anything. Oh, look at that, sorry.
What do you mean?
Nothing. Never mind.
Are you suggesting that I'm spoiling this perfect thing?
Makoto is a nice boy and nobody can ruin that fanon for me.
Whatever, I'm going with reason. Well, I don't know.
What does the chat say?
Yes, what does the chat say?
Chat's saying nothing.
It's a very hard game to talk about.
It is basically just about terrible things happening.
Well, really, it's just red or blue. What's so hard? Instinct hasn't steered us wrong before.
That's true. Raisin, says Goldheppa. Alright, I'm Raisin.
We could do eeny, meeny, miny, mo.
Yeah, says... what's his name? Yoji.
Yeah. His face stiffened when he heard Tetsuo's name. But he loosened his face immediately, not to show anything.
It wasn't anything
anything
special. I just thought I should thank him for that time.
Thank him.
Makoto looked puzzled. It was a lie he just came up with. He didn't know if Makoto would believe it. He continued the lie, feeling impatient.
About what happened during the experiment.
Ah, when he took you to the infirmary. I see.
He felt relieved, seeing Makoto nod.
So how did it go? Shiranuma's reaction. Did he say something back?
No, not really. Nothing special.
Right. He probably doesn't care about something like that.
Makoto shrugged his shoulders. Yuji's chest felt heavy for some reason, seeing Makoto do that.
Don't care about me. I want you to leave me alone. Oh, never mind. That was thoughts.
Yeah, I'm not sure whose thoughts those were, but okay.
I'm pretty sure they were Yoji's.
Those words came into his head and he looked away.
Sorry, I'm going home.
Ah, yeah. See you later.
Makoto gave a small smile and waved lightly.
Left the classroom,
Yuji nodded back.
shoes,
A bunch
went
of
to the
garbage
entrance.
happened.
Yeah, he talked something I snapped for that I was worried about him. He's really thankful for that. It was something I really... Maybe because we're friends. Friends.
I like how you managed to swap roles in that position and then swap back without any...
We're basically just kind of playing it by ear at this point.
Well, I was just skipping through.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
And you do have the advantage of zero lag.
Yeah. Is that what friends are? What is friend?
There are no friends in this world.
I think we're-
a friend in this fucked up world?
I think we are past the point where the save is gonna be corrupted. I wish I'd saved the
Well.
choices.
You know what that means, Cherry Doom.
What?
It means we have to finish it in one sitting.
Well, I could just leave it on, but then I wouldn't be able to switch over to my other partition where I have
Yeah.
all my other video games.
Yep.
Have,
Which would be a problem.
Hasn't been every decision except for the previous one been, instinct?
Yeah, I think so.
Here. I will tell you what our decisions were. The start of the game was red. Then we went all blue up until we got to the first Tetsuo choice. Then it was red, and then a whole bunch more blue. And then in this session, we've done all red except for this most recent one.
So
Oh wait, no. We did blue when we met Tetsuo in the hallway, and then all the rest are red up until this point here, where we did blue when talking to Makoto.
Okay. Not great at writing this. Okay, so we went red first, blue to Tetsuo choice, which was red.
Yeah.
Then blue all the way until just now?
It was blue all the way until we got
To the roof?
No, let's see.
Oh, didn't we reason with Zenya? Blue? Yeah, blue.
Yeah, we reasoned with Zenya, and then after Zenya, we stopped reasoning because it was all Tetsuo.
Okay, so red for Tetsuo, and then blue back to Makoto. I should have just done Makoto's ending first, because that's all blue. That's the only one I know for sure, because it's easy. But that, well, maybe we'll see it later. He couldn't objectively look at the relationship between him and others. You don't know. Why is Makoto worried? He just doesn't know. He doesn't know anything. He's more thought of a great new man. He's gonna mail someone his sister's address. He just wanted some relief. He's mailing his sister. There was no reply from his sister. Japanese. Mixed all the people, returning home, healed on the strap, blah 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 blah. Okay, and I know the two things that are happening next. I don't know what order they happen in. Hey, it's Okanaga's Zenya, the son of a mobster. Do you follow? I didn't at first, but like he'd been so noisy and then it was quiet all of a sudden, so I looked around and he was gone. Well, not a lot of people stay until that late anyway, so there's not a lot of eyewitnesses. I heard someone saw him rolling it around in agony, and then the chauffeur came in a car and took him home. But at 5 is when the bells start playing the children's song, Yuyake Koyake start, right? Yeah, but the story is he's absolutely never there when they ring. Like, he's really creepy, huh? It's like a real ghost story, but he's alive. He's completely scary, for real.
For realsies.
Nah. His whole body was shaking. Enduring a headache, Zenya was moving ahead, leaning on the walls of the corridor for support. The sound of the bells that dissolved his curse streamed into his ear. Gushing sweat ran down his temple and dripped from his chin. I will say that there's like a kind of distorted bell sound of like the song that's playing. It's pretty good. Oh, that's Zenya.
I messed up.
His right eye was tormented by a pain as if it had been gouged with a knife, face twisting. He usually made sure to leave school by 5, but today he'd lost track of time. Recently, he'd been absent-minded often. It was because of Tetsuo and Yoji.
Oh, joy.
There was not a shadow in the hallway filled with light of the sunset, and his moans echoed off the floor in vain. There were only bathrooms and supply rooms where Zenya was headed, so not many people passed through. He could go unseen if he shut himself in a stall, especially. So in the times he stayed at school past 5, he used it as a hiding spot. His body creaked, his muscles and insides swelled, trying to tear through skin. Ugh. His right eye was hot like it was being burned. This was the ceremony of pain that he visited at 5 in the evening. The afternoon sun that burned everything disappeared, changing into a gentle evening. The time where his flesh woke and thrived. A surging cry of ecstasy tormented Zenya from inside him. His mouth was filled with the taste of iron when he coughed. Unsure if it was spit or blood, he swallowed it, almost choking again. Trying to overcome his body, Zenya entered the men's washroom.
This
Entering
whole
a
school
stall.
is just covered in invisible blood.
Yeah. Entering a stall, he closed the locked door. Leaning against the door, Zenya tilted his head to look upwards, gasping violently for breath. Pulling out his cell phone from his pants pocket with shaky hands, he pressed the speed dial button. He could hear the mechanical ringing sound hit his ears at a steady rhythm. Hurry, 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 hurry and answer. Praying silently, as hard as he could, he felt as if the flow of time had slowed, trying to fix his grip on his phone. His fingers stiffened, dropping it. He heard a hard sound hit the floor.
Oh. Ow.
Without the strength to pick it up, Zenya crouched down, backsliding along the door. He could hear a shriek from inside his body, a sound like a thick branch bending just before it snapped. A cry of flesh struggling to break free from its husk. It hurt! It hurt! It was agonizing! His nose and the skin around his eyes grew warm, his field of vision blurring.
Oh
Oh no, his eye's bleeding. Tears flowed from his eyes, throat twitching. The pain he had tasted every day but could never get used to seemed to be completely reconstructing his body. He could heard the ringtone from his cell phone on the floor. Come quick, hurry, 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 hurry. The tears streaming, Zenya repeated the words over and over like a prayer. Oh, sorry, that was him saying the thing. When he was lost in the stall after 5, I thought he was just thinking it. It's hard to tell. Zenya called for it.
Externally internalized.
I don't know. So he would know where he was. Although, yeah, Yuyaki Koyaki had already stopped playing, the cries of his flesh hadn't lessened. After who knows how long, he heard footsteps running down the hall. This is Katani, so helmet condenser?
Boy.
A familiar voice reached the cramped washroom. Zenya tried to call out, but his lips only cracked into the atmosphere. The skin of his dry lips tore and cracked. Zenya sniffled, banging his hand on the door instead.
Oi, open up!
The door was jolted violently from the outside, and Zenya somehow managed to reach out and unlock the door. The door opened just as he unlocked it, and Katani leapt in with an expression uncommon for him. Opening those always calm eyes, even his sharp cheeks stiffened. Crying, Zenya thought to himself that he quite liked that expression. This is... Irk, yeah.
Boy.
I wonder if he's supposed to be saying young master like he did earlier, and it's just a
Maybe.
different translator. Looking at Zenya as he crouched, Katani let out a sigh of relief.
Are you okay? Can you stand?
Tightly grasping the hand extended to him, Zenya slowly rose to his feet. His legs wobbled. He felt like he was moving up and down as if the floor was made of sponge. Katani looked into Zenya's face, frowning.
There's blood.
His large hand touched Zenya's right cheek. It must be bleeding from his right eye, as usual.
You're late. Late! You fucking dumb shit.
I'm sorry. Let's go home.
Right.
Once Katani had grabbed the cell phone from the floor, he put Zenya's arm around his shoulder. His tears had stopped, but his body's creaking continued. Now pain ran through his body wherever he was touched. Katani.
Please, hold on a little more.
Leaning on Katani, Zenya exited the washroom. Doing what he could to stay out of sight, they headed to the service entrance. Although Zenya's eyes were downcast, he could see the colors of the setting sun dyeing his surroundings. This was the time of day he hated most. He would do whatever he could to spend this time at home. He wanted to cower in his room until the pain subsided. His body was at ease like that, and he had truly made a mistake today.
Zenya does not praise the sun.
All of it was because of those two. Because of those two, he was going mad. Because of them, they'd see. And during the intermittent pain, Zenya gave a faint smirk. This morning, he had trouble waking up, sitting at the end of the dining table, cigarette case, looked at the clock. A few minutes after midnight. Smoking. After picking, so even though it was an instruction, he didn't feel good abducting a minor. And then there was Yoji Sakiyama, who lost consciousness along the way. When Katani looked at him, he felt sorry and had to avert his eyes. He actually wanted to carry him to his room, but to avoid witnesses, he had to leave him in the trash in front of the apartment building. When he had asked Zenya if there wouldn't be any witnesses this way, he laughed and said definitely not. He had also said there wouldn't be the type to do anything stupid, so that's why no one would notice anything. He let out a sigh and white smoke. Back in his Yakuza days, there had been similar situations. However, Katani was a respectable man, and it was his policy to avoid laying a hand on women and children. This remained the same even after he had washed his hands of the business. And so, although he understood rationally that this was just work, it hurt him to do it. At any rate, he called that student called Tetsuo. He had a remarkable physique for a high schooler, but putting that aside, he also possessed tenacious willpower. I'm dying, my throat. Someone take over.
Okay. Except for a faint groan, no amount of beating had broken his silence.
Oh.
Yeah, so just smash through this. We know that he beat up a kid, and now he's just reflecting on what we already know pretty much.
But he also endured a lot of the beating. It took a lot to take him down.
So Tetsuo was a powerful boy.
Penetrating eyes. Tetsuo, especially noticeable, and aura different from the other students. A lot, deja vu. Already seen him before. Just gonna check on his dad.
So let's see what Crazy Dad's doing.
Okay.
Basically, nothing is happening.
Somehow, please calm your rage. Somehow. I beg of you, somehow. Katani's eyes snapped open in suspicion. The subdued, muttering voice was much more brisk and zealous than usual. Sneaking a peek at the shrine, Katani shuddered. Kunihito faced the altar, raising something high in the air. From what Katani could see, in his hands was a lump that resembled. In his hands was what resembled a lump of fur. Was it an animal? It was the size of a dog or a cat. Liquid dripped from the bundle of fur and trickled onto the floor. Good God. Had Kunihito killed it? For what purpose? It was obvious. To sacrifice it to God. I will never forget your resentment. Never in my life. Denied by him. You were not even permitted to assume human forms. No doubt you detest us. But please, somehow, please calm your rage. Somehow. The flames of the candles illuminated the lump-like form, its eyes and mouth frozen agape. Katani felt inexpressible emotions welling up in his chest. Was it too late? Could he no longer go back to the way he was? The former Okinaga Kunihito, who had commanded many men with his undisputed decisiveness and leadership. Perhaps sensing Katani's presence, Kunihito looked over his shoulder. Then, noticing Katani appearing into the room, his entire face contorted in fury. Katana, what are you gawking at? Kunihito, thank you.
Katani with long strides and abruptly grabbed him by the collar. He vigorously shook Katani with enough force to drag him to the floor. Katani involuntarily lost his stance and was pulled to his knees. You bow down as well. You shall apologize for your disrespect. Feel ashamed of yourself. Who has monopolized God's affections? Who has bestowed the figure made in God's own image? Kunihito babbled. At any rate, it seemed that more than having his worship spied on, he was angry that Katani did not carry himself humbly at this place. Kunihito grabbed the corpse on the floor with both bloody hands and thrust it before Katani. The heap of flesh was crushed unrecognizably.
Do you want to look like this too, you fool? Do you understand the resentment of who were unable to assume forms except ones like these? Ugh.
More than discomfort or disgust, sorrow and heartbreak clenched Katani's chest. Hesitatingly, he touched Kunihito's blood-stained arm and asked in a voice as calm as he could muster.
Boss!
Yeah.
Boss, what are you worshipping? What sort of god would be in a place like this?
There is no God. What resides here are the desires of the spirits forsaken by God.
Kunihito screamed wildly, spluttering at the mouth.
The Great Flood, Sodom and Gomorrah. A great number of people had their lives snatched away at the judgment of the ruthless God. These people were not only locked out of heaven, but were never again permitted to don the appearance of God upon their bodies. And this is the consequence. Denigrated to subhuman forms, they spend their lives filled with bitter curses, damning those who swagger about calling themselves the children of God. The Myrmicolian, with a body not even permitted to remain alive.
Formerly, Okinaga Kunihito had been a devout Christian. Kunihito had never let himself show weakness to those around him, had not once spoken openly about his faith. For the deity to which the Yakuza boss silently clasped his hands together in prayer before each meal was no Japanese god. Only those very close to him knew the fact that he was an adherent of a foreign religion. His piety was tenaciously kept to himself. Nevertheless, his was an honest devotion that never once wavered, that Kunihito never once found shameful. Though Katani had never been one for religion, there had been times back when, influenced by Kunihito, he had secretly tried reading the Bible. With that extent of knowledge, Katani really was no expert on the subject, but even to him it was painstakingly clear. The strange religious ideas that Kunihito babbled about now were definitely not the teachings of Christianity. Everything had started with one bullet. Although Kunihito had managed to survive after taking a bullet to the head during a certain dispute, thereafter he had gone to pieces and begun incessantly sprouting nonsensical words such as, "I can see evil spirits." Even so, Katani wanted to believe Kunihito to the end. No matter the situation, the boss was the boss. If it were loyalty that could be lost so easily, he wouldn't have pledged it from the beginning. With these thoughts, he devoted himself body and soul to Okinaga until that day. However, it would be a lie to say that Kunihito's continuously deteriorating mental health didn't make him anxious. Katani had no intention of leaving. He was merely unsure as to what would happen from then on.
I'm able to see them. They're everywhere, grudgingly watching us from the darkness, those glares of hatred.
As if totally oblivious to Katani's existence, Kunihito once again began to offer prayers in solitude. If things were like this, there was nothing he could accomplish by staying here. Turning his back to the place of worship that rang with blind prayers, Katani mulled over the bitter sentiments in his heart.
So, my theory is that, like, these souls that are forsaken are, like, being born into these subhuman forms out of,
In Bud Orb form.
yeah, in butt orb form out of Yoji.
Okay.
Maybe, not sure. That's my theory. The sharp stench of gasoline. Go ahead.
The air was strangely hot, making it hard to breathe. His throat seemed to swell. He could see the shades of red and black mixed together, faint in his cloudy vision. It was hot. Part of his body was in violent pain, but he couldn't determine exactly where. It was heavy. He couldn't move his body, feeling as if something were weighing on him. There was a rumbling sound. He could even feel the red colors were on fire. The temperature rose in surrounding air. He couldn't breathe. He could hear something bursting open, as well as the sound of something crumbling. He didn't know what was going on, just that he felt it was dangerous, so he tried to escape. When he tried to remove whatever's on top of him, both hands slid wetly against it. It was a terrible sensation. He glanced down towards his stomach.
Oh no.
What was there was a clump of meat drenched in blood. So frightening. He shrieked, but his voice wouldn't come out. Even so, a futile scream welled from his throat. The flesh lump undulated slowly, slowly coming towards his face.
Oh no.
Screaming desperately to get away, it weighed his lower half down like a boulder, and he couldn't move. Blood bubbles formed on the surface, and the membrane of the lump lines with blood vessels trembled.
No.
No,
Don't come
don't
closer.
come closer.
No. No.
Oh.
Yoji gets woken up by his terrible nightmare.
At least he was asleep.
This is the scene of his room.
His whole body is soaked with sweat, his pulse wild. I can remember the dream.
After waking up from that nightmare, he felt like he had just seen a hideous nightmare.
Weird nostalgia.
Yep. Fell over. Oh no, he almost hit his aquarium. With these hands he could do whatever, so then their existence was the same as his own. Living in someone else's hands. His heart is aching, doesn't know what's going on. Who knows what's going on? Nobody knows what's going on. Still hasn't received a reply from his sister. Laying in bed, looking up at the ceiling. She wants to live an ordinary life, but shit's going crazy. Oh, someone's calling. But he's not gonna pick it up because he's a dumb idiot.
Yep. Once
Even though
again.
she's calling him in the middle of the goddamn night. It's maybe something important. Oh boy.
Maybe it's the baby.
Thick gray clouds. He goes to school again.
Maybe she made a blood orb and a baby came out.
I was like, oh no, she's gonna have a blood orb baby. What if it was his brother-in-law, her husband? He...
So he's not going to call back because he's an idiot.
Yep.
Foolish baby.
Here we are in school again.
Okay. My computer looks like it might restart, so I'm gonna save.
What do you mean?
Updates. I mean, I know.
Oh, well, you can stop that.
Yeah, but it looks like it's not wanting to give me a choice, maybe. It's like, your computer might restart, just so you know.
Oh.
Anyway, it's fine. Didn't come.
Yesterday's happenings.
Okay,
It's
preparing to go
mine.
home. So, did you hear? Someone in Class B saw something weird in the men's washroom. Huh, what? I heard the thing about something seen in some chemistry lab. Same thing.
Some blood and meat thing coming out.
Oh no, it was moving. What the hell? Maybe he was just half awake? Probably. Guy's really creepy, don't get it. Students left, amused, but Yuji was being tormented by a warping hallucination before his eyes. The conversation doesn't now. Although the Zenya gossip got mixed in midway, there was another eyewitness. The reddish-black clump. He should have done something about it, no shit. Get it. Bitter regret started in his chest. Get away from the student amusement. He grabbed left the room. Dizzy, rocking from side to side, painted black, very changing the sheetrock. Uh-oh. It's Zenya again.
Gotcha, yo.
Zenya lowered his head, a big smile spreading across his lips. I can't talk anymore.
At the same time, he was someone who knew what Yoji wanted to know.
Hey, give me a moment of your time. I want to talk again. Is
Yeah, I
now
totally
okay?
won't beat you up and throw you in a room.
With the guy that raped
This
you.
was absolutely not okay. Was it really okay to leave it? Get information.
No,
No.
he couldn't.
He couldn't. Nothing would come of this. Something different about this weird guy.
You ran away! Hey, it's raining again. It's raining. Oh no, it's Zenya.
Gotcha.
Let me go.
Is it always raining when Zenya's outside?
Maybe.
And it's always warm when Tetsuo's outside.
Ooh, good catch.
That's why I'm going with the reason and instinct thing, because reason is shown as
Blue.
cool rain.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Same kind of person again. Same kind of person. I know lots about you. More than your family, okay? So let's talk.
Let's talk about butt orbs.
Heh, good. Well, let's talk.
Oh no. So weird things happened. And the dice. Oh yeah, we never heard the result of the previous dice roll, so I don't know what the fuck was going on there.
Is Zenya trying to apologize?
I can't
I
tell.
think so. Oh no.
Oh boy, investigate you properly on my own.
Quit it.
Quit
Let
it.
me go.
Let me go.
Me too, Gold Heppa.
I mean, wasn't it like the first week and then the midterms were coming around and then all of a sudden nobody cares? Makoto, being a good boy, is studying very hard with his super speed.
Weirdo. What are you doing, Orca?
Investigated into your past and so on, Yuji. So what's in the past? What's in the past?
So,
Let's
let's get
go.
close. No, let me go.
Unbelievable.
Oh shit! Yeah.
Oh look, it's the big boy. He's back.
Fighting over who gets to rape Yoji.
Yep. This is classic yaoi all the
Yep.
way.
I think maybe we should stop. I think we've clearly run into a wall here.
The continuous assault wall.
I just meant as far as us not reading anything anymore.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's at some point you just get so jaded to it because you've been reading
Yeah.
a million boring descriptions
Yeah.
of everything.
Ooh, look at that hair though.
That's pretty damn anime. Don't touch garbage. I'm garbage.
Don't touch it.
Touch it. Do not touch garbage.
Don't just touch it how you please. Ooh.
Which is your thing.
What the fuck?
There.
What the actual fuck?
What happened?
Are you fucking with me, fuck right off? Oh, I am mighty thinking someone's
You got
yours.
some nerve, smile, disappeared. What are you gonna do about it?
You got some noise.
What can you do?
Fuck you.
Okay.
Alright.
Are we going to have an intermission sometime soon?
Yes, we're going to have one right now because I think nobody is able to do this anymore. So, thanks guys. See you later.
This sure is a story.
Sorry, I got everybody into this. My stomach
No,
hurts.
no, like at some
It-
point, ultimately, this type of story can only go downhill.
Yeah.
So,
It kind of built up, but then it sort of collapsed under its own weight, and then it doesn't know what to do and how to build up again, and nothing's really happening.
I mean, things are happening. Never mind. No, they're not. Alright, good night.
Right.
Might go take
Thanks.
a nap. Goodbye. Thanks for watching. Sorry, this is so weird.